Spencer, you were giving a short introduction to this game, and I just want to say, I took my time with the first few hours of it, and there's an understated grace and beauty to the way that the story unfolds. It really is told across all of the different mechanisms that we have in games, right? Through interaction, through the storytelling, the narrative itself. And sound is woven in as such a fundamental piece. This is a contemplative game. It is a thinking and feeling game, if I may say. And it feels like it was ripe for this treatment of sound and music.
I can see in these letters that the outside world has extremes of beauty and tragedy beyond anything I've known.
Yeah, I would say that I worked, aside from Vibe Avenue, the person I worked the closest with on team was Kevin, the director, who had his own sort of vision for the entire way that the story was going to unfold. When you're doing recordings, it also triggers elements from the story that you're sort of uncovering, and there's this whole sort of new vector for the writing process where the character would record something and then have their own sort of internal monologue, which is written down in the journal.
Someone carved notches in the bamboo for the wind to flit through, so it can sing.
And a lot of what Kevin did was sort of work these tools back into the writing process, which became a whole other sort of space in which the game has sort of emotional resonance, and the way that emotional resonance connects with the sound in the game. And the whole thing was very integrated with Kevin, and then with also just like the game designers of the whole project, as well as Vibe Avenue, of course.
I feel nourished in these sights by the unfamiliarity of it all. These means of connection, long in disuse, are certainly telling me something about the world. Will they be used again in the next season?
Did you have total freedom with how you were, working with Vibe Avenue? How did that collaboration between the two of you work? How did you balance maybe your vision or direction against the creativity, and how did that work?
It worked very natural. It helped that they had actually done all the sound design for the demo version of the game, which was completed before I came on the project. There was a demo version of the game that they took to PAX East, I think in 2019, I want to say. I came on the project in June of 2020, sort of deep in the beginning of the kind of pandemic. What I was sort of given starting out was basically this sort of rudimentary version of what we ended up with, the bike mechanics, some of the level soundscape design, some things like that. So when the game got picked up by Sony in, I want to say, towards the end of 2020, they were the natural person to bring back onto the project, given that they already had familiarity with it. As far as like what the constraints were, our only constraints were, time and budget. We certainly had enough freedom to experiment, which was something that, I think is crucial in any sort of kind of project, to sort of land on things that do work, things that don't work. Eventually we had to rein it in and make some hard decisions down the line, but, experimenting with them was very easy.
Power was greater and deeper than anyone knew. That was how the last season ended.
Yeah, I think Spencer had great vision, and then we were more like there to like say, okay, this is easily doable, this takes more work, so where should we focus our resources? And then at some point we we got the ball rolling. Like we knew what Spencer was looking for.
Cheng Valley has many faces, many themes, characters, eras, stages of its existence. Take a look through this junk, and we'll pick one of those faces.
My approach to it is very sort of from outside of the perspective of working in Wise, and sort of they were the Wise experts. I had more of like the, philosophical or musical direction that sort of helped us land on what we wanted this game to sort of feel like.
Do you want this to be our theme? Very good.
It's fantastic, like the collaborative pieces that I'm hearing weaving through the team across all the disciplines, having to be aware of sound, its influence, and its, storytelling possibility. Sounds like it was a very deliberate piece of the development pipeline, not just between yourselves, but also across all the other teams as well. That just happened? Was that just magic? Was there some intention of that from the start?
This art will memorialize Cheng Valley, and we'll finish it together.
At first we started out, we kind of working in both directions, where they asked me what sort of sounds I would like to have in the world that would be important. And then they also created, narratives that had objects which would emit sound. So the design of what these sounds even were was sort of coming from both ends. So a lot of the things that you see in the game, which are like automatic instruments or sort of like proto sound art kind of things, like wind harps, or like the organ that's played by the air.
There's something eerie about an instrument that plays itself.
Those are all things that I sort of came up with, and we just made like a master list of all these sort of things that we wanted to have in the game, and then sort of ran it by the various departments of like, do we have enough bandwidth on the art team to make something, or in the animation side, can it be animated in these sort of ways?
You were the co-author of this moment. I would never have found it without you.
I mean, a lot of this was sort of just trial and error based on playtesting too, where like sort of the original iteration of the recorder, you could only record the things that we deemed as collectibles or keepsakes. Like when you tried to record something where there was no sound, or no important quote unquote sound, you would get a recording, but it wouldn't show up in your journal. You couldn't recall it back.
Like there's some wins that weren't like necessarily thought of as recordables, but then turns out it was very cool.
We had a lot of players, I mean myself too, who were like, I want to just be able to record the wind and have it in my journal and listen back to it as part of my my own version of the story. So we rewrote the design of the whole audio system kind of around feedback like that we got.
In the past, I tried to control everything. My work was dead. This time, let's follow our intuition, gather some pieces, and see what happens. What magic might be hiding in this day, which will pass and never return?
Yeah, for sure there was some happy accidents too. Like we start populating the map with sound, and then turns out that the design team really likes one of the sounds we put somewhere. For instance, at some point in the game, we won't spoil anything, but there's a character that's sleeping, and I think it's Manu that did the integration, put a very cool snoring sound, and then of course the writing team and everything wanted to have it as a collectible because it was so funny. So yeah, there's happy accidents like that.
And I think one of the things that's was really clear from a direction standpoint is this is a game where ambiances are important, right? They're not just setting or a backdrop, right? There's a level of environmental storytelling going on here that that matters, right? Narratively, but also with regards to immersion, right? Hand placing those 3D emitters, making sure that you're tuning the mix across these different areas, right? To focus or de-emphasize other sounds, right? To help tell that story. So it's great to hear how much care you've taken to ensure that all speaks the language of the game.
Hello. I love you. Ice cream.